Zahra Pedersen, podcaster and motivational speaker, who is helping Muslim women worldwide to break free of limitations through faith-based teachings and a holistic approach to mental health. So, Zahra, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. It's good to be here today.
Welcome back. SubhanAllah, you've been away for what, 2 years from London to Copenhagen?
Yes, I moved back to Copenhagen a couple of years ago and got married. Now I've got a stepdaughter.
Oh, congratulations. Well done.
Congratulations. Copenhagen, is that the one that's got some kind of famous statue or something?
Like the Little Mermaid?
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it? With the mermaid.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Fantastic. Well, look, last time you were...
It's kind of a mess.
And what's the lockdown like over there?
Pretty much the same as anywhere else. We're all bored, we're all tired, we're just hoping the vaccine's going to change the situation at this point.
Have they started rolling the vaccine out over there?
Yeah, they've done it. I don't know, I think the first 1% of the population have got it at this point. But again, all the elderly, everybody who's like at risk, you know, they're the ones who'll get it first.
And look, before we get down to why you're with us tonight, what's it like being kind of not part of Britain anymore and kind of Europe's on its own kind of thing? Is there a big discussion going on out there?
Well, I mean, I will always say, at heart, I'm a Londoner, so I always feel a connection to London anyway.
She's good.
So far, we haven't felt Brexit in Denmark. You've probably felt it more in the UK than we have in Europe just yet.
We're starting to.
I think everybody's so busy with COVID anyway that we haven't quite noticed yet.
Well, I'm Scottish, so we're still part of Europe as far as I'm concerned.
She's got Danish, Scottish and English.
Last time you were with us, mashallah, you were talking about obviously fitness and you've moved on, alhamdulillah. So tonight we're going to talk about the other side of fitness and mental health and life coaching. First of all, just tell us, how did you get into that? Because mashallah, certainly having worked with you and, heard you speaking about getting fit generally, you really had all angles covered. So I'm assuming it was a natural transition to go into life coaching.
Well, I think the thing was that I originally wanted to go into life coaching, but I was 27 years at the time when I started my company up, the Healthy Hijab. And like everybody else, I was thinking nobody wants to live and listen to a 27-year-old tell them how to live their life. So clearly the smooth transition would be to do personal training. But what I quickly found while doing personal training with women was that I became a life coach to them. Many women saw this work with me as an opportunity to let me in on a lot of things that were happening behind the scenes that weren't just about body transformations anymore. And so I've really had about 6 years of being a personal trainer where I've been training for this moment. And alhamdulillah, and I say this and I'm sorry if it's triggering people, alhamdulillah, COVID happened and it forced me out of the gym because they closed.
Yeah.
And so I had to think of something else and to pivot, you make do with what you have. And I was like, fine, if I can't train women anymore, I'll do life coaching because that's also anyway what I wanted to do initially.
Did you not take that?
It's the way sorted for you,
Did you not take that natural transition? I mean, obviously, Bilal, we've come across it here in the UK particularly. A lot of, personal trainers, etc., or people in the gym took their training online.
I've never been a fan of online training personally. I've found that in the years that I've been training women, whenever I've offered online coaching, not a lot of women are into it. And not to say that there's no business in it, because of course there is. I think I was basically just putting out an energy that I wasn't into the, online coaching. So as a result, what I got back was people didn't want online training. So my whole outlook on that was people don't want online training, and honestly I don't want to sit in front of a screen the whole day and doing squats in front of a screen camera. And I'm a very hands-on trainer. When I've been training with women, I like to put people into the positions if they're struggling. You can't do that from a distance. So it works for some trainers and they adapt really well and they do an amazing job at it. I wouldn't have done that.
I'm really intrigued to know this transition stage now, because you've obviously come out of that side of things. Can you tell us a bit more about your life coaching and where that's heading now?
Yeah, so the thing about the coaching is when I first started in Healthy Hijab with the personal training, I had about a year or a year and a half prior to setting up my company, got a diagnosis of severe anxiety and depression. And fitness and looking after my body and my diet and my health helped me sort of battle the hardest part of my anxiety and depression, and it alleviated some of it and helped me manage the rest pretty well. And so my thought going into personal training was, if it helped for me, then maybe it'll help for someone else as well. And in reality, there were so many other things that I did on the side besides just training, a lot of mind work, a lot of talking to therapists, opening up to people, doing a lot of mind shift changes. And at the end of the day, I thought there's so much more to it. And when, as I said, the more I worked with women, the more I realized that they were using me as this safe space, and they were letting me in, telling me a lot of things that were happening in their life. And I realized that there were so many Muslim women these days who are suffering secretly and silently with mental health disorders. There are so many Muslim women out there who are struggling with depression, bipolar, anxiety, PTSD, and we've got no focus on them. So there's no real approach to helping them at this point. No one's really reaching out to them. And so they're kind of just left there on their own. On top of that, sorry for speaking for so long, on top of that, we also have a cultural stigma in many of our cultures. I'm half Moroccan. I know that we have a lot of cultural stigmas around mental health. And I know that I think it's also the Asian part of the world also has a lot of stigmas around saying you have depression or anxiety. So there's already a cultural pressure to not speak up about these things. So you don't really go out asking for help either. And so I thought, if they're not comfortable asking for help, I'll try and help break the ice and speak about it first.
It's interesting what you mentioned, because I was watching the box last night, as they call it, on TV, and there was a female on, very similar to what you just mentioned, who basically went through similar issues that you mentioned about yourself, and she took her fitness, and that was her way out. And she's at the point where I think she's a bit of an influencer, so to speak. She actually, when she goes to the gym, she actually takes over the whole gym and nobody else is allowed in. So she pays for it because she doesn't want to be around people. She's still got some phobias, etc. But look, I mean, I suppose the mind is the most important thing. Even if you're talking about fitness, if your mind isn't in the right place, you can't really go very far. And you've touched on some of the issues that are affecting the Muslim world per se, and I suppose that's been exacerbated by COVID. You mentioned about the energy that you can transmit when you see somebody. How are you still able to get that energy across now? You're obviously having to do a lot of this online.
Yeah, so luckily for me, I'm not a stranger to sitting in front of a camera and doing podcasts and just generally, putting myself out there on social media. And that has certainly helped, because you need to have a presence all the time, and you need to be in people's faces all the time, because people need to be able to trust you, especially if you have to work at a distance. Because right now, obviously, I'm not just working with women in Denmark, Muslim women in Denmark. I've got clients in the UK, I've got clients in America. So there's a great big physical distance between us at this point. So the trust has to come from elsewhere. The trust comes from, first and foremost, they see my face regularly. So I'm not a stranger anymore. They know who I am because I'm constantly sharing. Number two, I'm sharing my private journey as well with them. So it's not about talking about anxiety and depression and the struggle between, being a good Muslim woman or a bad Muslim woman. I'm in there, I'm talking about these things and giving my own personal experiences to show people all the time it's safe to share. It's you can trust with me. So when you come to me, I already feel like a friend, and you know that I'm not going to judge you because I have been in the same boat if I'm not still in the same boat.
So a lot of this is kind of the theoretical side of it. I mean, if someone was to come to you like now, what's the actual process? How do you start? What's the steps that you take to engage them and carry on your teachings?
Well, the first thing will always be that they contact me and they say that they're interested in talking to someone. And usually these people will be people who have thought about approaching a therapist before, or a psychotherapist before, or someone who's come because they've had like a really, really traumatizing background one way or another. So they'll usually be like, I really need to speak to someone. I don't know if it's you, but I saw that you're offering something, so I'd like to hear more. And at that point, of course, I'll just thank them for reaching out in the first place, because that one step, just reaching out in the first part is so difficult because you're acknowledging that there's a problem and that you are willing to make a difference.
First step is the hardest, right?
I always offer everyone a free coaching call, the first session, just so we can get to know each other, because even if I can theoretically help, sorry, I'm not speaking English all the time anymore.
Right.
Even if I can theoretically help the person who's contacting me, our energies might not match. They might think, you know what, Zahra speaks too much.
Let me stop you there.
Sorry?
Let me stop you there for a minute.
Yeah.
Is that really important? Because somebody might need some help and you two just don't connect. Are you in a position then to turn around and say, look, we can't work together? Is that or do you try and overcome that hurdle and see how can you try and mold that person into what you need them to be, kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's an excellent question. Now, I wouldn't ever just kind of turn anybody away and be like, I can't work with you, because obviously if you're already sitting in a vulnerable position, you don't want that kind of a reply from anyone. Luckily, and alhamdulillah, there are so many more coaches around the world, and Muslim female coaches as well. So what I would do is, if I feel that there's a barrier energetically where I feel like this is a person that I won't be able to reach through because maybe we're not speaking enough of the same language or something, there might be some other hurdle, whatever it might be, then I would say, I don't know that I can help you, but I would love to find someone else who can. So I'll help you in your journey. So it's not about just letting go of people again. That's dangerous to do, especially when someone's reached out and confided in you that they're struggling. So it's always about trying to say, well, if I can't help them, then, you know, there's another billion Muslim women around the world. I'm sure we can find one that's really good for them to speak
talking about hurdles, Bilal, obviously Monday we had Dr. Danish on. He was talking about, we mentioned, we had somebody else talk about mental health on Monday, and that people have, you know, limitations at home because under the lockdown, we don't get that private space we need to be able to speak to people. How are you dealing with that scenario? Because there are, you know, first of all, you know, Muslim women, unfortunately, have not been given the space to really, you know, deal with some of the issues. And that's very unfortunate. And then secondly, the lockdown will not be helping because people are sitting at home. They're in difficulty as it is, trying to find that private space. And maybe what they want to talk about is, you know, probably sitting next to them, kind of idea. So what about these kind of hurdles then? Obviously, the privacy and obviously their own kind of surroundings, you know, maybe that's, you know, brought those issues to the front. And I think you just touched on something else. So I'm going to throw all this together because they're all quite similar, is the faith aspect. That you being a Muslim, them being a Muslim, how important are these things as well?
Okay. Both of them really good points that you're making. The first one, if we go to the whole COVID adding extra pressure, this is obviously not only on Muslim women, this is worldwide. If ever we need to start focusing on mental health, now is the time, because now we're more isolated. And we all know, research has already said to us several times that in order for us to live well and live long, we need to have people around us. And all of a sudden we're told you can't have people around you. So clearly that's always going to have an effect on everybody's mental health. And it's not just the individual, it's the collective mental health of the entire world all of a sudden that you're looking at. And again, I'd say it's really good because the good thing about this is that there are people like me. I'm not the only one who's doing these things, who are putting themselves out there and sharing, being transparent with people about these things. So I was struggling a lot in the beginning stages of lockdown here in Denmark, because I think we were actually one of the first countries in the world to go into full lockdown, and then everyone else started to follow suit. And it was terrifying. And I, with someone who's been dealing with anxiety and depression for years and years and years, you know, clearly had a huge, like, yo-yoing effect back into the anxiety and out again, and back into the anxiety and out again. And so I spoke from that place to connect people, to let them know they're not alone. I think that's the thing that matters the most, because everything I saw online at that point was people joining every fitness program and going for runs and, you know, I don't know, chasing that summer body or whatever. People making banana bread. I don't know why, God knows why.
Banana bread.
All these things, I finally have time to learn a new skill. Everyone was putting on this facade that they were doing thing. And I was sitting there thinking, am I the only one who's struggling? And so I was honest about it, and I put it out there, and I said I had probably one of the worst panic attacks, you know, to the point where my dad had to drive me to the emergency room, the psychiatric emergency room, and they had to give me something because it was so bad. And I shared it, and when I shared it, people responded, and they were like, "Oh my God, thank you for saying that."
People relate to that.
I think that's a really good point. Now, when people can actually relate to problems, it highlights the actual need that's there, because it's such a stigma, isn't it? Mental health and I think, you know, Allah is so great. Everything happens for a reason. And look at the industry you're in now. He's taking you out of the gym side of thing, and now with the mental health sort of life coaching thing, and you've got this pebble that's going to make ripples in this pond now that's helping all these people, Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And also you've got something that's going to help you out as well. In a written form, I believe. It's a novel coming out this year, is that right?
Yes, I've got a book coming out on May 24th here in Denmark.
Inshallah.
So I'm very excited about it.
Is it in English?
Speaking to UK, London publishers as well, and inshallah, it'll come out in England as well.
And what we're looking at, is it going to be your kind of journey? Is it the top tips to stay happy and focused?
It's a novel, so it's all fiction. But basically, when I was growing up, I grew up with Sex and the City, Bridget Jones, Shopaholic, you know, all of these very sort of typical chick sort of series and books and things like that. And I just always missed seeing the brown ethnic Muslim girl going through similar things. I miss seeing that narrative. I miss seeing that perspective. And so I thought, if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to write that book. So I did.
Wow.
And listen, don't knock banana bread, because it was the cake of the year in 2020 in this country.
Certainly
It was
was
at the top of the ladder.
Certainly was.
And I've never, that's the one thing I haven't done, but I did learn to cook throughout the lockdown, alhamdulillah. And I actually went home a couple of weekends ago, and it's the first time I've cooked in 30 years of married life, so that was
30 years?
30 years.
Wow.
This year, alhamdulillah. Look, Zahra, before you go, what are your top tips of, I mean, mashallah, you've always been very bubbly, and if you told me that you'd had anxious moments and this and that, I wouldn't have believed them, right? Because we've worked together. There's no way, even when we've met you online on the fitness stuff that you talked about in the past, I wouldn't have thought that for a minute. So what would be your top 3 or 4 tips for people to stay happy and focused, especially with lockdown 3 here, lockdown 3 over there as well? What's your advice to people?
Speak up, share, let people in on what's going on in your mind. No one can read your mind. If you're like me, who's sort of, they call it high functioning person with anxiety, that means that nobody can see it, but internal, everything's happening that feels very panicky, but on the outside, it looks like I'm just, she's just ambitious, she's just going for things. And on the inside, everything's going wrong. It's even harder to sort of for everybody else to read what's going on. So it's even more important for people to speak up. It's very important for someone like me to say, my anxiety today is really bad. I need to take a step back and you need to give me a moment. And for other people, it might just be like, it doesn't have to be putting down these boundaries. It could just be saying, I don't understand why, but I'm feeling very unmotivated today. Could you please just be kind to me or give me that space that I need? So it really comes down to vocalizing to the people around you. You can't expect people to treat you in any way that they don't know that they're meant to treat you in. So always, always, always vocalize as much as you can. The second thing I'd say is always try and see if this is something that's been going on for a long time, always speak to a GP. They might be able to refer you to a therapist. You might be able to get something for free, or they might even, if it's needed, be able to give you some type of medication to help you take the edge of things. And regardless of what it is, you should always be open to the options. I know that a lot of us can be very hesitant to medication. I was as well, but I'm not anymore. So, you know, always look for your options, your outs, and then just try and forgive yourself for it. I definitely think that's a huge part. If you keep punishing yourself for not feeling well, you'll never feel well. But if you accept that it's just the way it is, and you say, you know what, I can't do anything about it, so I'll forgive myself for feeling this way, and it's okay, and then move on.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. That's
fantastic. Well, look, Jazakumullah khair for being with us. Great tips.
Yeah.
And the very best for you, inshallah. We love seeing you whenever you're on here or you come and work with us in the past, inshallah. And keep safe. And congratulations on the little one as well, mashallah. Fantastic news. Alhamdulillah. And we look forward to seeing you back in London at some point.
Yeah.
And good luck with the book.
Yeah, that book looks exciting.
We might get you on once it's written.
Inshallah.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, how do they say goodbye in Danish?
How do you say goodbye in Danish? Harder?
Hi, hi.
Hi, hi. Okay.
Hi, hi.
Bye, bye.
Assalamu alaikum.